Hey there, folks. This is Lenny Rudo from Fish Talk Magazine, and you're watching TV Free Baltimore.
This is Strider, Regional Director for the Guardian Angels here in Baltimore. Welcome to Beyond the Streets. Tonight's show, I'm kind of excited about. We have Kimberly Klasick here, and unless you guys have been living in the box, Kimberly Klasick is the one who put Baltimore on the map because of President Trump rant with Elijah Cummings and the trash and the condition of the areas and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm looking forward to this show. Welcome to Beyond the Streets. I gotta ask, okay? I'm sure that well, actually, you know what? Your reputation and your Twitter account and all them social networks kind of skyrocketed because the president basically brought your name up because he follows your tweets when you tweeted about Baltimore. So you want to tell me what happened with all that? How did that begin and what happened afterwards?
Yeah, so the president actually didn't see the tweets until a week after I had began tweeting the videos out. So originally I was tweeting them out and I was copying Congressman Cummings, Mayor Jack Young, and Council President Brandon Scott, and I was saying, hey guys, look at all this trash over here. You know, there are people in these neighborhoods that are dealing with a lot that some other neighborhoods don't deal with, especially things like Harbor East, Roland Park, and I'm saying, here we're in Sandtown, Easterwood, Carrollton Ridge, and all these people are dealing with mounds of trash, and DPW, Baltimore Department of Public Works, doesn't seem to be picking it up. I said, so why is that? And so I'm tweeting it out, and at that point I had 16,000 followers. And all of a sudden, Fox News saw it. You know, I do commentary on Fox News every now and then. And so they asked me to come in and explain it. And so on a Saturday morning, I did. The president happened to be watching. And so then he actually said verbatim what I said and what some of the interviewees said in the video. And it just began this tweet storm that I never saw coming. You know, I never copied the president on it. He just kind of saw it. I think he was already dealing with Congressman Cummings with everything that was going on with the border and the Oversight Committee, and he just took it and ran. And then I was kind of just like right there. But I was actually happy about it because I thought now finally somebody will hear this and the people in those areas will finally receive some help.
So what did you do when somebody call you and say, hey, the president just brought up your tweet? I mean, what did you say then? Because it's kind of, I mean, you know, Trump, I send you stuff all the time. I can understand why you don't call me back, but what did you say when how did you find out that he'd actually commented on it?
Yeah, so I was driving from Fox Studio, coming up 295. You know, I went to D.C. to do the show, and while on 295, I got a text message from one of my friends, and they were like, hey, I think the president saw your segment because he's literally repeating everything that you're saying. And so I go on Twitter. You're not supposed to look at your phone while you're driving. So, but I go on Twitter just to see, and I saw where he was just kind of going over and over, literally the same thing that I just said on Fox News an hour prior. So from what I heard, Fox and Friends then actually reran my segment. They reran it from the 6:30 hour to the 7:30 hour, and that's how he ended up seeing it on the rerun.
So it kind of threw you into the limelight of political hell, basically. You know?
Yeah, I was surprised because, you know, everyone in these neighborhoods, in these areas where I was, they were so happy. They were like, I hope someone sees this so we can finally get some help and they can remove all this trash and everything that we're living with. And then I read everything from the WJZ website to WBAL to Baltimore Sun, and they're like, who does this girl think she is? And I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I was doing a good deed. I thought I was saying, hey, guys, look what's going on over here. And it just really just blew out of control.
Well, let me ask you, do you think realistically that President Trump would have actually paid attention to your tweet if it was just about the trash in Baltimore? Or was it that your video kind of gave him ammunition to go after Elijah Cummings?
I think it was the perfect storm. I do. I think he really was already going back and forth with Congressman Cummings. He saw that segment. They were talking about the conditions at the border. You look at some of the neighborhoods I was in, I mean, you have to be honest, they're worse than the conditions at the border. And so he took that and ran with it. And I know it sounds awful, but I'm happy that he did, because now so many people in these areas are seeing relief.
So what's changed?
So now, I don't know if you saw, Baltimore Sun has written an article about Baltimore Department of Public Works and how they found out 5% of the time they answer the calls in Carrollton Ridge and other neighborhoods in West Baltimore, whereas the calls from Roland Park or Harbor East, they answer the calls 100% of the time. So there really is a situation where they're not answering the calls in some of these areas, and they're not picking up the trash. So that was obvious to me. It was evident when I was there. But the people that live in these neighborhoods, some of them, don't actually go outside the neighborhood. They're using public transportation. They're going to work from home. They're not really going around the entire city and noticing that they're being, I'm not going to say discriminated against, but kind of in a way, it seemed like that.
Well, what started you doing the videos in the first place? I mean, without the president's buy-in and his reason to have revenge on Elijah Cummings, because like I said, but so what initially made you do that in the first place?
So on a Sunday morning talk show on ABC Politics, Congressman Elijah Cummings was on and said that his constituents were afraid of Trump. And so I have a nonprofit called Potential Me, Workforce Development, and I'm in West Baltimore and other areas every now and then at some of the employment specialists, helping with career close and teaching soft skills. And so I said, there's no way his constituents are afraid of Trump. And I'm saying this in a position where I know that the people in these areas aren't actually thinking about President Trump. You know what I mean? They're thinking about the day-to-day kind of life, And so I said, I'm not going to assume. I'm going to go into West Baltimore in these areas that I know that they're not thinking about Trump, and I'm going to bring my camera and I'm going to ask them, are they afraid of President Trump? And the first two guys that I approached, they laughed at me. One of the guys will say, what's scary? I'll show you. And I don't think anyone should do this at home, but I allowed this stranger to jump in my car. We drove down to North Arlington. Don't do this. We drove down to North Arlington where he lived, and the neighboring house was vacant. And you could see where the trash was piling up. And I spoke to his wife, and she said she had been calling DPW since December of 2018. Mind you, this is July 2019, and no one had come to pick it up. No one had come to do anything. And he said the trash, the rats, the squatters, he said it was getting so bad and unbearable. And so he said, this is what we're afraid of. And I said, okay. I'll take a video of this and I'll put it out there and let's see what happens.
But why those neighborhoods?
He said his constituents, so it had to be in District 7.
So
it had to be in District 7, and I know by going in these neighborhoods, I'm in and out all the time with my nonprofit. I know, talking to people in those areas, the last thing they're thinking about is what's going on the federal level. And so I knew that that was not the case. And I thought to myself, why would he even sit here and say this? I could not understand it. I said, but I'm not going to sit here and just assume. I'm just going to go and talk to people, and we hardly see the media. And I reach out to April Ryan on CNN, MSNBC. You never see them in neighborhoods, even after the videos. Come and talk to people and ask them what their experience was. No one ever came. And so I said to myself, this is the problem. When you have people speaking on behalf of people that never have a voice that's heard, that's an issue for me. And to me, that's not journalism.
Do you think it's weird that, now granted, Elijah Cummings, may have said, okay, my constituents are afraid of Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And as a president, realistically, I don't really think about the presidency as much as I have during the last 12 years or so, because of the changes and, granted historical changes and of course what's going on right now with Trump historical. In there. But at the same time, you can go anywhere and you will find people that are ready to burn the world down for Trump. And granted, hell, Lincoln was supposed to have freed the slaves. I don't think he had as many enemies or supporters as Trump has got. This guy has a crazy cult following. Yeah. Don't you think that? Now, granted, think about it. Now, okay, we have you.
Yes.
Who heard on My constituents are afraid of Donald Trump. Okay, and what did you do? You wanted to go out and talk to people in his constituents to find out if they're afraid of this particular president.
Yeah.
Who does that and why? Because granted, except for all the crazy things that Trump has done, I don't even think about the man. You know, except for the fact that every time I wake up, and I'm glad the world's still here, but other than that,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, people are literally going nuts to defend him. People who are a lot smarter than me, and here you are. I mean, think about it. If anybody else would have said something, let's say Elijah Cummings would have said, or somebody would have said, you know, the Elijah Cummings constituents are afraid of him. Would you have done the same thing? Would you have went into and asked why?
Well, I think for me, and this is what I'm saying, being a Fox News, commentator, I always saw, or I can always see how the media has changed. So I used to do this back in 2014. And to me, the media has taken situations and have polarized it, right? We've got the far left against the far right. And at this point in time, I feel like the media plays a huge part in dividing the country. And I think when you're saying, he's got a huge following, either they hate him or they love him, right? The cult you're saying. I think the media plays into that. They're all there to get the ratings. And I think that's the problem. And that's what I was saying about CNN. It's like, no one's actually going out and doing journalism anymore. You kind of sit in the news studio and they say, oh, this is what we think happens because we saw a think tank that said that. And it's like, well, why are you're judging people and their situations from afar, but why not come into the neighborhoods and talk to people like they used to do?
Now, do you still go into the neighborhoods? I mean,
I was there today.
So what's I mean, obviously, when your video came out and Trump trashed Baltimore, people were going ballistic over all kinds of stuff. How did that affect you personally?
I got lots of phone calls. I got a lot of stuff through social media.
Other than your 60,000 more followers.
Yeah, well, no, there were a lot of people upset. I got a lot of hateful emails. So my email was already available on my nonprofit website. People found out who I was, and, I was afraid. I didn't understand if people were going to come show up at my house. I wasn't sure because my address is made public, just like many people's are today. And so I didn't understand, I guess, why I was being attacked because to me, I was the messenger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a hell of a message, though.
It turned out to be a bigger message, in my opinion, again, because of the media and the way it was portrayed. Where it could have just been like, okay, there's an issue here. Let's find out the issue. Let's go about it. And they could have still said they didn't like Trump. They could have still said, we don't like the way you brought attention to it. But, Al Sharpton comes in for a day. Right? And he's like, oh, how dare he? Where has he been since then? I don't know. But, it's kind of like they got on the defense. And no one said, you know what, maybe we should see whether or not the trash is getting picked up.
Let's go look at
there.
the neighborhood.
Yeah, no one did that. And that's where I think there's the issue, where people are just so defensive. And I understand people feel the way they do about Trump. I get it. But they get so defensive. And instead of saying, okay, these are my constituents, this is my city, let's check this out. You saw the hashtag We Are Baltimore, and everyone's posting pictures of, the harbor. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's the point.
Let's go back to the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's the point here. Yes, the harbor looks great. Yeah, Harbor East looks great. There are areas that look great, and then there are areas that don't look great, and we should understand why. You
met Trump.
Yes.
Okay, so now all this goes on, okay? What was that like? I mean, now basically you're a Trump supporter anyway.
Yeah, so I met Trump before he was even president. So
now when you met him after president, correct? Did you meet him after your...
I did not speak to him directly. I spoke to the administration.
And what did the administration say about the...
They were asking me what the heck is going on in Baltimore. When the smoke was settling, I don't know if you remember, Dr. Carson came out for a day.
Yeah.
And the church kicked him off their lawn and said, get off our lawn. What are you doing here? They were actually trying to assess the issue and see if they could help on a federal level. And, the city was kind of giving them pushback. And I think Dr. Carson is not the kind to get into a fight about anything. And he just kind of went back to D.C. And so I had an issue with that also. You don't just throw your hands up and say, well, they're being mean not help the people that need help.
Granted, I'll give you that. But you also, you do know that no matter what, there are so many passionate people when it comes to the city of Baltimore.
Oh,
And people,
yes.
I mean, and they kind of, it's kind of like, you
Yes.
know, you dissed our house, buddy, you know, I mean, and
Right.
not saying you per se, but granted, you know, like I said, my opinion, I think Trump basically was, you know, I think he'd have just blown over that tweet if it wasn't for the fact that it had, you know, Elijah Cummings' name attached to it. But that's just my personal
And
opinion.
you could totally be right about that.
And you
yes.
know, but he's a different kind of animal. But you are a big Trump supporter.
I am.
Why?
I guess I watched it. Like I said, I've been doing media for a little while now, and I've watched just how we've kind of reverted into this political correctness mega madness, I guess is what I see. And so everyone's got to be extra nice and don't offend anyone, and you know what I mean? It's like we're always tiptoeing around each other, and I think a lot of the crime and violence that we see today spurs from that whole political correctness, in my opinion. You know, it's like the teachers can't really, you know, push back on the students when they're doing behavior modification. No one's learning in the classrooms because don't offend any of the kids in there. You know what I mean? It's just like we have so many people today that are like so, I'm not going to say they're walking on eggshells, but they don't want to actually address real problems because they're afraid of offending someone. You know, and I think that's a cop-out. I think
What
we
do
need to
you
get
think
back
is a
to
real problem?
the crime and violence today.
Now,
is
let's
a
talk
real
about the crime and
problem.
violence
Yes, oh my gosh. So I sat down with some people in the police department, and you know what they were doing in 2014. I won't say it was working because we know it was bad then too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was working better than it is today. And I sat down and they actually listed out what they saw was the issues. They had more people, more police officers patrolling the streets. Now that the consent decree is in place, they have more people in administrative positions downtown. And they're saying, you know, this is all hands on deck situation, considering that they're already down in police officers. And I said, well, you know, why can't you take some of those doing administrative work and putting them on the street? And they were like, we can't. Our hands are tied. You know, and so they were just showing me how they would love to get back to the numbers as far as, you know, how many detectives they had working on certain cases. Right now, juveniles, they were showing me that there are some cases where you could apprehend a juvenile with an illegal weapon, take them downtown, a central booking. Then you would have to, I guess, get in contact with their guardian, and they could be home and back on the street in 4 hours. That is crazy to me. So I think juveniles know right now there's really no consequences. When you look at the number of carjackings, I think we're over 450 this year. Most of them are done by juveniles under 18. And they expressed to me that they feel like they just know that there's nothing we can do. And this is almost kind of like for fun.
But it's not an answer. It's not an answer because you look at, as of the taping is, we're probably up to 344 homicides in Baltimore City. And I was listening to a guy's show today, Darren Muhammad, who I love listening to his show. And one of the things that he said was, hey, why don't we, you know, Johns Hopkins Hospital has security stations posted all around the diameter of the hospital and their areas.
Yeah.
Why don't we do the same thing with the city? Post officers everywhere, because that's going to be safe. But the thing is, you know, we had approximately 3,000 police officers. We had a police department that did so well at closing homicide. They actually gave them they made a TV show about it, you know, homicide, life on the streets. But we had all this at one time.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, there's nothing you can do. We can't keep up. You know, we're changing police commissioners every other year or so. And granted, they're making tons of money, but at the same time, the dollar aspects of it doesn't make you a better police officer. You know, we have so much going on. The crime and violence is going up. It's not going down.
Right.
You know, so now, if the police department, who are putting in more officers on the street, they got all this stuff going on.
Right. I guess
how
the
does
spy
a
planes.
political, and the spy plane, okay, yeah, exactly, you got it all. Okay, how do politicians fix it? So how does anybody fix it? So what is the answer here?
Right. Well, I see from what my view is, I feel like City Hall is kind of ignoring it. I think Mayor Jack Young said he's hoping it gets colder outside.
Don't forget the boxing rings.
Right. You got a box. And you know what's so crazy about it? He called it Merriweather Post Pavilion. How long has it been Royal Farms Arena? I'm like, where has this guy been living? So, you know, just certain comments like that, you know, don't pull up next to any white vans, a kidnapper might jump out. You know, it's almost like they think, not saying that they think it's a joke, but they're just not taking it serious enough for me.
But I'm not defending anybody, but I think that realistically, as Baltimore City, we have the changes in the police department. We have the the political corruption and people going to
Yes.
jail, and we got the indictments, we got the feds. I mean, there's a lot going on.
There is.
So how do you stay focused enough to say, hey, we have a problem, we got to fix
I
this?
know.
Because everybody's too busy looking behind and waiting for handcuffs. You know, this is a problem. So realistically, how do you fix the city of Baltimore?
Well, I
and
think-
now you're running.
Yes.
You're running.
District 7, yes.
So you're actually, so what the hell is that like? Because you're running for the, you know, your video for District 7 kind of, you know, now you're running for, you know, that's a big deal.
I said, you know, if I'm going to walk the walk, I should talk the talk, right?
So what are you going to do to change it?
Well, I think, honestly, and this is what I say all the time, you could throw billions of dollars at Baltimore City, right? And it won't change until you get rid of the people that are in charge of spending, that are either squandering or stealing. And so I think accountability is key. When you expose more of this corruption, I mean, we see they're falling like dominoes at this point, right? I think it's the more
You got to give her that one. You can't say anything else. They're falling like dominoes here.
They are, and I think the more and more we get rid of the people that are doing this pay for play and the fraudulent behavior, we can finally see what money we're actually working with, right? So where do we pull resources from? And so I think as a political position, especially on a federal level, like after the videos, I went through and I was like, well, what happened to all of that money that went into West Baltimore after the Freddie Gray riots? You know, so there was $23 million that went to North Avenue Rising. And that money, I found out, was allocated to building new bus lanes, the bus shelters, and there were some road repairs, $23 million. Now, I know by, talking to a lot of people in the area, when they think of $23 million going to that area, they're not thinking about new bus lanes, right? There's so much more that could be done. And so I think that's what we need to do. I'm talking with a gentleman, his name is King, Conscious Roundtable. They're talking about it to investors, hoping to get people to actually own their homes, right? Because there's a lot of things going on. You see the Trump administration's coming in with the opportunity zones, right? So it's like we need to be able to say, okay, let's bring that in, let's do urban revitalization, but let's not do it like they did in D.C. Remember, National Stadium came in, they displaced everybody. We can't have that here. And so I would love to be there to intercept that so that doesn't happen.
You don't think Johns Hopkins is displacing everybody?
I'm sure they are displacing people. I'm
how
sure
long?
they are.
Don't get me wrong, Johns Hopkins. You guys have done a great job. If it wasn't for you, we'd have doubled our homicide rate. So don't take it personally.
Yes, Hopkins and shock trauma.
But you're talking about the people that do have the money, and a lot of times they make their money work for whatever it is they've got going on.
Right.
And of course, we're going to change Baltimore City's name to Johns Hopkins one day. Just give us time. But at the same time, I mean, so everybody, how do you stop that? I mean, but what's the first? Now, how come you didn't decide to run for mayor?
For mayor? Okay, so I'm more on a federal level, right? I want to see where these federal grants went and where they could go. So I'm on that side. And some people say, okay, well, you could do so much more as a local leader. But look at what we got going on in City Council, right? We got Brandon Scott screaming on this side, and you got Mayor Jack Young screaming on that side. I don't think they really get much done. I mean, I see they passed the plastic ban tax or plastic bag tax, right? I'm like, what the heck is that?
You don't think that's important?
No.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll just testing you. Go
No,
on.
but I don't feel like they get a lot done. But I think when you're in this seat, I think you can actually do some oversight, right? And this isn't just Baltimore City, right? It encompasses Baltimore County and Howard County. And Howard County is now dealing with the school redistricting, and the parents over there are flaming mad. They are upset. And so to me, there's a lot of issues where if you fix some of the issues in District 7, that will pour into the city, and it will help on that level as well. And so I've been talking to the administration, and I've been talking to people, and we're talking about doing more urban revitalization and opportunity zones. I think you might have saw it, maybe some of it has been happening in East Baltimore. Pastor Hickman has been working with the administration. They allocated him millions of dollars to begin, and he's doing a great job. And so when I went to them and I said, well, what do you plan to do for West Baltimore? And they were kind of looking like, oh, West Baltimore, we don't seem to have that. And like, oh, my name is Kim. Now you do. And so now, we're actually making steps forward. So I'm excited.
So what do you think, your thing with Baltimore City?
Yeah.
As far as the mayor's office and the city council president and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously you follow it.
Yes, that's my life, yeah.
All right, so what do you think is the issue?
Incompetency, like there's a lot of people that just don't know what they're doing. Okay, I looked up Mayor Jack Young, sorry. I looked up his voting record, and he abstained from voting 170 times one year, like maybe 2 years ago. He said he had his wife worked at Hopkins filing patients, so he couldn't vote on anything that had to do with Hopkins. He had a cousin that worked for Baltimore Department of Public Works. He couldn't vote on anything that had to do with DPW. So, there's a lot just, people are kind of, I'm not going to say they're lazy, but it doesn't seem like they're working with any urgency or they want to work hard.
That's when people look at you and they say something like, "Well, no offense." Then I'm not
I'm not going to say they're lazy because I don't know them that well, but it looks that the appearance is there's no urgency and there's no one there that really says, "Okay, let's take these reins and do something." I think just 2 weeks ago they were talking about not discriminating against certain hairstyles in the workplace. I'm sure that is important in an all-black city. I'm sure. But we got how many homicides? How many shootings? I mean, there's so many important things that we could be focused on.
Now, Brandon Scott was public safety chair?
Oh,
and he's running
since 2011, chair of the violence committee.
Yeah, so don't I mean,
I'm not going to badmouth anybody here.
Well, I'm not badmouthing. I'm
no,
just saying,
I'm personally not going to badmouth him.
I mean, he's running for mayor, right? And
right.
He did that for 2 years.
And I would say, what is your track record? What have you been doing since 2011? What have you been doing this entire time?
I'm not going to ask you of all the mayoral candidates who you would choose. I'm not going to ask you that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot you would choose?
No, there's a lot of candidates.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot. But then, I mean, I remember when Blake ran, I mean, everybody thought they could do better.
Yeah.
But, like I said, Baltimore City is Baltimore City.
Yeah.
So you're running for your seat.
Yes.
So what do you think your odds are as far as making this thing happen? I mean, because granted, I'm curious because I talked to you early today, and you were running around doing some other stuff, and obviously, and you were talking about, I'm riding by waving at people who hate me. That was kind of funny.
I know.
I mean, granted, I give it to you. I mean, nothing you can do but laugh and wave, but at the same time, I mean, has it helped you or hurt you? I mean, because realistically, who was it that said that even bad attention is good attention when you're running the races. Do you think that's right? I mean, everybody knows who you are now.
That is true, but I don't know how great it is. But yeah, that is true because it does kind of jump you up. And I meet so many people that says, "Aren't you the only Republican running?" And I'm like, "Well, no, there's 8 of us." But
there's 8 of you, but they know who you are.
Right, and so that's the difference. And even though I've had bad attention so far locally, they believe it's just me on the Republican ticket. So I guess that is helpful. But another thing that I would be pushing once I get to Capitol Hill is term limits. And I also believe in over-the-counter sale of birth control. Many countries already have birth control over-the-counter, and I think the U.S. likes to regulate some things like that, and I think we should stop, and we should allow women to make the choice to take birth control pills.
So you're going to be real popular, aren't you?
I am going to be so popular. They're gonna love me.
So how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, so you can go to kimkforcongress.com. There you can sign up for newsletters, updates. You can sign up to volunteer. Just put your email in, and then you can also donate there as well. And there's contact information. You can contact me there and ask me any questions. I like to go out and speak to different groups. So if I can come and speak, no matter how large or small the group is, I want to meet everybody in District 7.
So my last question is, now, when's the last time you went to the neighborhood that you filmed with the trash? Do you know if it's been picked up as of yet? Has it been picked up?
So, and thank you for asking.
Well, you're welcome.
Dear DPW, take your behind to the corner of North Arlington and Franklin, because that alleyway, that very first video I did in that abandoned home, in that first alleyway, it's still there. Still there.
The same trash.
The same trash. And I'm like, how is this possible? And I want to thank Scott Pressler for coming to clean up. I want to thank Baltimore Beautification Project, Tourist Barksdale, and VJ. They've been cleaning up too. So there's a lot of people since all this exposure with the videos that have been cleaning up in Baltimore. I wish DPW and the city would get on it. But I am very thankful for those that came to clean up as well.
Wow. You know what? I have no words. I mean, you can honestly complain about the videos, people, but at the same time, since the videos and nothing's been done. Now, can we still find the videos online?
Yes, so they're on my YouTube channel. So you can go to Kimberly Klasick. Social media, Twitter, I'm Kim K Baltimore, and Instagram, I have to warn you, I'm very boring on Instagram, but it's Kimberly Klasick as well.
Well, you guys, this is Strider. I want to say thank you to TV Free Baltimore, of course, for Beyond the Streets. And this has been fun. And we're going to have you back on here to talk about some other stuff. And especially if they end up picking the trash up, give us a call and let us know.
I will.
You know, because we might have to go by there, guys, and do an age patrol and take some pictures of the neighborhood. But, you know,
Please
DPW's
do.
got to get on the stick. But this is Strider from Beyond the Streets, and I want to say thank you, and thank you for coming out and joining us today.